Hi everybody, so this video is for people who've previously owned a PSVR, the original one for the PlayStation 4, and now you're thinking about, is it worth buying something like the Meta Quest 2? So maybe you bought a PSVR back in the day, like myself, because you were intrigued by the possibilities of what VR could be. I personally went to a gamers convention in the UK and got to play a bit of Resident Evil 7 on the PSVR, and it blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I have to have this. And then spent, I think it was about £250. It was as expensive as the console to buy this device. And I didn't use it that much. I played about halfway through Resident Evil 7 and then played the rest, in flat screen mode. Played various other games. But because of things like I didn't have the Move controllers, because the Move controllers were incredibly expensive to buy. I just bought the headset. And I did buy the gun that you could get. And I used that with the game. And it was kind of okay, but it was kind of a bit inconvenient, so I kind of didn't use it that much after that. It kind of went back in the box and just sat there. And I haven't really thought about VR since. However, since having a gaming PC for the last couple of years, the idea of VR has been at the back of my mind, and especially since recently I've been playing more flight sims. So I've always enjoyed Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and previous flight simulators as well, and the IL-2 Sturmovik Battle of Stalingrad type titles. And watching videos of people playing that, most of them are using VR. So I thought, maybe I should start thinking about it again. But it's incredibly expensive, isn't it? Because I hadn't checked the prices. And then I went on Amazon and I could see you could get one of these devices for £200, which is cheaper than what the PSVR was back in the day. So I took the plunge and I've got one of these. So as I say, so you previously bought a PSVR, now you've got a gaming PC that can support VR. My particular gaming PC is a Lenovo Legion T5, I think it is, with an RTX 3070. The specs are in the description below this video. So it can run VR okay. And you're wondering, is it worth it? What's the improvement? What has changed in the VR world, in the years since the PSVR, and now we have the Meta Quest 2. Now, if you're watching this video and the Meta Quest 2 isn't available anymore, and you're not thinking about getting one second hand, and we're onto the Meta Quest 2.5 or 3 Lite or something like that, this kind of video kind of applies to that as well, I guess. So what I've got, I went to a comparison site, and I've compared all the specs so that obviously, there's the things that I kind of remember and understand, but I just want to sort of go a few of these things. So the first thing we've mentioned is price. For £200, you can get, or $200, you can get a Meta Quest 2. And what's really important is this is virtually all in. You get everything you need to not only have PC VR, where you're playing your PC VR titles, but also one of the big differences with the Meta Quest 2, which I'll talk about in a bit as well, is that it is a standalone VR. So it does have a processor and memory in here, 128 gigabytes in this case, where it can play its own games. So you don't need to have a PC to do that sort of stuff. Now, they're not PC VR quality games, but they're pretty good. There's lots of interesting ones. Also, you get a charger as well, obviously. You get the controllers. Now, these would be the equivalent of the Move controllers they were ridiculously expensive, weren't they, to buy back in the day? But they're so much better. So I don't know whether you can see there, but you've got buttons. There you can see better. There's a joystick there as well. You've got 2 triggers on the front. Obviously, you've got 2 of these. They've got capacitance detection, I think you call it, where it knows where your fingers are. So it knows if your finger is sitting on the trigger or it's not, as well as obviously pulling the trigger like that. And you get 2 of those included in the price, where if you remember with the PSVR, you didn't get any of that at all. It's wireless. So the only wire you need is to charge it up, and then you get they reckon about 2 hours out of it. I probably get about an hour out of it when I'm using it. And these all connect wirelessly as well. It uses, what they call inside-out tracking. So you remember with the PSVR, you had to have the PlayStation camera set up, and then this would light up and it would track it through that. It doesn't work like that with this. What this has, it has these cameras on the front. They scan the environment you're standing in or sitting in, and then that enables it, along with the internal movement sensors on all of it, to be able to track where you are. So you don't have to set anything else up at all. It just scans the room. You can tell it where your safe area is on the floor, and you're good to go, which is pretty amazing indeed. The resolution is about twice as high as the PlayStation VR. I will say, when I first popped on the Meta Quest 2, and I haven't played with the PlayStation VR for a couple of years now. I used it, I think just before Christmas. I actually plugged it into my PC to see whether it would be viable as a PC VR, because there is software to be able to do that. But to be honest, it was really blurry. And I played some Euro Truck Simulator, and I was like, this isn't what I'm looking for. The experience I would have on my 27-inch 1440p monitor was much, much, much better. So I didn't use it for that. When I first plugged in my Meta Quest 2 and started looking at things, although I thought it was better than the PSVR, it didn't blow me away. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was looking at the real world around me. So that might be worth bearing in mind as well. Although it has roughly twice the resolution, you don't put it on and go, oh my God, it seems like I'm in the real world right now. That may be because the field of view, so the angle that you can actually see in front of you, is similar between these two headsets. So you kind of have that blinkered view of the world a little bit, which maybe your subconscious knows. And perhaps with more expensive headsets, where they have that higher, I think they call it pixels per inch or something like that, you get to a point where your eyes can't detect the difference between sort of real life and rendered life. But I would say that. So it is much, much better. Don't get me wrong, it is much, much, much better. But I still didn't put it on and go, oh my God. Because I remember putting the PSVR on for the first time, and I think doing the demo where you were in the diving cage going down in the sea, and that was amazing. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. I kind of didn't really have that experience with this, even though it was much, much better. Where I did have a bit of experiences like that was in Microsoft Flight Simulator, when I was in the Spitfire and I was just looking at the dashboard, and I was getting closer to the dashboard in the cockpit, and I realised that the kind of the black metal of the dashboard, I could see the difference in textures between different parts. So bits of the dashboard that were like worn away a little bit, I could see that texture. And that's when I went, oh, wow. And then when I was looking at the writing on some of the controls as well in the dashboard, I was like, oh, there's so much detail there. I can see more detail in this than I can see on my monitor. Where it wasn't quite so good was where I was looking into the distance at trees and bushes, where they were getting a little bit fuzzy. But that will be a limitation on probably the hardware on my PC, and the fact that we're streaming it as well. So just bear in mind that, when you pop it on, you might not have a eureka moment. It will be better, but it might not be that. Audio is really important as well. The Meta Quest 2 comes with built-in audio and a mic. The audio is actually comes out of like these speakers here, which might seem a bit odd, but it does work well. And I guess they do that so that your awareness of the world around you isn't as restricted as it would be when you would put a PSVR on and you would put your earphones in, or you would put your headset on. As I say, it's got a mic as well. And related to that, these cameras that you see around, you can set it so that when you tap the headset, it goes to what it calls pass-through mode. So you can actually see the world around you in black and white. So you can walk around and navigate your house in black and white. Now, it's not sharp enough for you to, for example, to use a computer and see what's on the screen, but it's good enough for you to sort of tap on it, see the world around, see where you've put your controllers, see where you put like your expert controller, your hotas, so you can pick it up. Just one of the frustrating things with all of the PSVR, any of the VR stuff, is it's the functionality, it's the logistics of, with myself, where I do use reading glasses, is if I want to use my computer, I have to tip this back on my head, put my glasses on, use my computer, take my glasses off, put my glasses down somewhere, put the controller down somewhere, put my Xbox controller down because I'm using Flight Simulator, and then put the headset on, and then where is it? And the beauty with pass-through is I can tap it and I can see where it is and I can pick it up. Well, obviously with PSVR, you couldn't really do that. Comfort-wise, I've got to say the PSVR was incredibly comfortable. It still is. I mean, my one, I think the problem with it now is a lot of the rubber bits have started to kind of flake off. But it had this really big soft band at the back, didn't it? Whereas the MetaQuest standard headband is kind of just like that, which isn't as good. There is a better headband you can get with batteries and stuff like that, so that's something I'll probably be upgrading to. And also the PSVR had like a system for tightening it on the back, didn't it? Where you would turn that ring there, where the Meta just has like a strap that you pull through, like on a safety helmet. So it's pretty basic there. So the PSVR was definitely comfortable. However, the MetaQuest is lighter than the PSVR, so that's pretty important that way. I'll mention the fact that they are standalone as well, the MetaQuest 2, so it can have its own apps on it. So even if you don't have a gaming PC, you can have a VR experience that includes things like Resident Evil 4 in VR, Beat Saber, loads and loads of different games. I would suggest if you are thinking about going down that route and you don't have a gaming PC, have a look at the games that are available and look at the prices they are as well, because they can be quite expensive because you don't have Steam sales on the MetaQuest store in the same way that you do have for PC gaming in Steam. And have a look at the reviews and have a look at the gameplay and think, is it worth it for that? The reason why I got the MetaQuest 2 was because I could use it as a PC VR headset wirelessly to things like Microsoft Flight Simulator, Sturmovik, and then really I want to get into the world of modded PC games, excuse me, that originally aren't VR, that mod in VR, to have mainly single player experiences. So I'm talking about things like Resident Evil 2 Remake VR, Resident Evil Village VR, Cyberpunk 2077 VR. Now, undoubtedly, my gaming PC isn't probably going to be powerful enough to be able to run something like Cyberpunk 2077 nicely in VR, because it's got to render two versions of the game at the same time. But we're going to have a play around. We're going to see what happens. And this is a great way of dipping my toe into that world. But I've got to say already, Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example, is really good in VR with this. It is fantastic for a casual VR and a casual flight sim user. If you're a serious flight sim or VR person, maybe you've got your own chair, you've got a full hotas system and stuff like that, maybe you'll want to spend a bit more money. But for me, where it's casual, where one of the most important things is the fact that there aren't any wires to trip over. Look, they're all back there. And it's so easy to set up. As long as this thing's charged up, I just turn it on my PC, hit the Oculus software. Sometimes you have to mess around getting it to link up, but it links up. You go into Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example, get yourself set up on the screen normally. Just say bonk VR, comes up as VR on here. And I'm flying a Spitfire around Gibraltar. I'm launching a F-14 Tomcat off a carrier in the Mediterranean. All that sort of stuff. Where I always remember the problem with the PSVR was you'd have to get it out if it wasn't set up already. You have to plug it all in. You'd have the pass-through box. You'd have to find your controllers, make sure everything was charged up. And it was just the inconvenience of doing it was I think just too high. And I think it can't be overstated too much, the convenience of having wireless. It really is. And I would probably sacrifice some resolution detail for the convenience of wireless VR, because it's just so good not to have that wire dangling down your back and pulling you out of the experience, or you move your controller and then your wire gets tangled up on it. So in summary then, after all this waffling, I've got to say that if you enjoyed your PSVR but were maybe a little bit disappointed about the experience you got, and you haven't sort of messed around with VR since then, but now you've got a gaming PC and you're thinking, well, I like Microsoft Flight Simulator, I like Euro Truck Simulator, I fancy having a go at it. At £200, I don't think you can go wrong with something like the MetaQuest 2. The fact that you get all of this and you get two of these is such good value for money. They can't be making money on these Facebook selling them like this. They just can't be. And I'm very excited about this and looking forward to not only using and playing and making lots of content about it for the channel, but just to explore the world of VR, because I've kind of got a feeling this is the slippery slope where maybe sort of this time next year you'll see me going, oh, right, okay, now I've got the next one up. Or I've got a more powerful PC or a more powerful graphics card to really drive it. Anyway, hopefully this has been useful. If you enjoyed that, you're going to enjoy that. And if you found the video useful, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And of course, I'll see you again soon.